this video, I will be going over and finishing up my list, starting from 15th favorite game of all time to number 1 game. I would highly encourage you to check out my previous video first, since it contains my top 30 to top 16 games, then come back here. Either way, it is fine. Now I'm sure that you're already aware, but this list will be containing of the games that I had the most fun with. Perhaps due to the memories, best moments, or a variety of different reasons. And as such, everything here is personal. I apologize if you do not see your game in this list, yet it's also possible that specific game may be in my previous video. Alright, so let's get into part 2 of my 30 most favorite games of all time. Grand Theft Auto 3 can be challenging from the start to the end. When you play this game, you'll never get bored. In this game, you can walk around the city, kill people, jump into the sea and dying, stealing cars from people, cop chases. Now the game graphics have aged quite poorly, and considering the game came out in 2001, it was still considered one of the best looking games out there. The game has got lots of great features to play around, blow stuff up, and a great storyline to keep you captivated throughout the whole way. The world itself is a large playground for all to have a pleasant or a chaos time.
Swinging through the kingdom in the night.
Well, the story is a bit short, and I wished it was longer. Spider-Man Miles Morales. I enjoyed it very much of it. It's visually stunning, combat is fun, the story is engaging. The side missions can be a bit repetitive, but they aren't too time consuming, and the fact that you can fast travel to areas with super fast load times on the PlayStation 5. You complete them in no time. Seeing Miles and Peter side by side definitely brings out the amazing feeling. The swinging is so much fun than the first one. The tricks feel much more fluid and natural to look at. The snowy New York makes the open world feel completely different from before. I thought it would feel exactly like the first game, just with Miles, considering it's the same city, but it just doesn't. I can't explain how exactly. The visuals are absolutely stunning even on the PlayStation 4. You do lose something by playing on the older generation, but it doesn't ruin the experience. The photo mode is fun and easy to use, the story is captivating and empowering. I found myself genuinely caring about all of the characters and their relationships. If you played or watched the first game and liked it in any way, there's just no question, you have to get this game. If you have a PlayStation 5, I very much suggest paying an extra for the Spider-Man Remastered as well. But this game is a must play for any fan of the Spider-Man. Bluepoint did an amazing job faithfully remaking Demon's Souls. An absolutely phenomenal title and a great start to the next gen. The visuals are stunning and the levels of details is through the roof. The game is still quite challenging and the new music is really well done. The bosses were mostly all really fun, but I kinda wish they would have changed Dragon God, True Alent. It's still twice as easy as Pinwheel or an Old Monk. Things like how lizard drops, respawn works and item burden could have been changed, but they are more than manageable and plenty of quality of life improvements were added. Fractured mode presents the same game yet makes it feel fresh, if a little bizarre to get your head around at first. But overall the game easily earns a very high mark, and I'm excited to see what Bluepoint does next.
I shall await thy return, Slayer of Demons.
Rockstar managed to improve Grand Theft Auto Vice City without changing its heart. and provided their millions of fans with a fantastic new experience. Even though lots of people may say copy and paste or coat of new paint, but very few may say that it's a step down game. For me, this game was one of my first Grand Theft Auto games that I simply couldn't put down. If I would have an option between this or Grand Theft Auto 3, I would choose Vice City. The game's world with improved lighting that references Miami beautifully with neon lights all over the place makes you stop and just take it all in. Back then, when the game came out in 2002, it was considered one of the beauties, and yet again this game has now aged unfortunately poorly. Makes it difficult to come back and replay it all. Since after that I played so many other games with more updated quality and better controls. But don't let that discourage you, since this game is still a must to play. Characters in the game felt like living, breathing people that you were adventuring with, and against rather feeling like a two-dimensional cutouts in the video game. The gameplay was varied enough so that it wasn't stale, and the challenges presented by enemies were fair and gave you the chances to decide how hard you wanted the adventure to be, both in the setting of the difficulty level and deciding the best method to kill or avoid the machines and enemies that you faced. One of the greatest feats of the video game engineering is always the ability to create a world that feels real and elicits real emotions when immersed in it. This game doesn't feel like a game at all. It feels like an alternative universe where you're really saving the world through the actions, thoughts, and feeling of a brave, sarcastic, and pathetic, beautiful red-headed Valkyrie. Any game that draws you in deeply as this one does can only deserve higher mark that I can give. There was a point in my life I grew tired of playing games. Then one day a friend of mine showed me The Last of Us for the PlayStation 3. It pretty much rekindled the gamer spirit of me. I bought the PlayStation 3 version of the game and engrossed myself with it. The Last of Us opened the world of Naughty Dog for me, and how I admired the group even though I already knew that Naughty Dog Studio are incredible of bringing storytelling games. But yet how such a group made a groundbreaking game is just amazing. After releasing games as a remaster on the PlayStation 4, it only made it so much more special for me, since I finally got an opportunity to play for the first time the Left Behind DLC that concentrates on the story of Ellie. The Last of Us knows how to play the strings of a player. It reached our emotions, it made us think and reflect in a very good way, not forcing any sort of the agenda onto us. It delivered a wonderful narrative. It's a game everyone should play. Spider-Man games and a lot of superhero games in general tends to be hit or miss. Obvious hits would include the Batman Arkham Knight series, while the last decent Spider-Man game I can remember was for the PlayStation 2. It can be hard to convey the feeling of being superpowered being into a video game format that doesn't involve 1v1 fighting like the Marvel's vs. Capcom or the Injustice series. Insomniac, the developers behind the most recent iteration of Spider-Man for the PlayStation 4, has done a remarkable job with this game, making you feel like the webhead as you swing throughout the Manhattan, fight street hoods and take on the rogues gallery of colorful villains. The web-swinging, fighting, atmosphere, characters and the main story are fantastic implementation of Peter Parker's journey. I really think that Insomniac hit it out of the park with this game, and I cannot wait to see more with the sequel. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas follows in the footsteps of its predecessor with some of the best open world gameplay available. While the plot of the game itself is actually fantastic, you can choose to completely ignore all of the missions and instead just drive around the city, stealing cars, causing general mayhem. In fact, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas does not skimp on content outside of the story missions. the game is home to too many mini-games to list, with everything from playing pool to getting involved in low-rider competitions to gambling in casinos. RPG-style stats are everywhere, and your actions in the game have a direct impact on your character. One of the most visible and obvious is that you actually get fat if you eat lots of fast food, or get buffed if you spend a lot of time at the gym. This game, for its time in 2004, was on another level of gaming. I remember the time when I simply booted up this game on my PlayStation 2 and wanted to simply drive around, and yet I only could play it for so long. After shutting it down and coming back, all my saves have been lost since I never had an extended hard drive, or should I say a memory card on the PlayStation 2. And due to that I could not forward the story. After all these years, this game has still the best memories for me, including the cheat codes that I had printed out on my paper or perhaps even memorized to be able to even have a bit of extra fun with the game. Damn, this game holds so many memories, it is simply wonderful. I may have been late to the Bloodborne party, but after spending some time with this game, I can unequivocally say that this is, hands down, one of the best PlayStation 4 exclusives to date. However, the game may not be for you. Bloodborne requires a certain acceptance of frustration. You will die multiple times in this game. You will have to be able to play with patience and carefulness, even when the things may not go your way. If you're up for the challenge though, you will be very much in for a treat. This is an insta pick as one of my favorite games ever, as I'm kicking myself for not getting it sooner, and is simply an absolute must for anyone with a PlayStation 4 and now on a PlayStation 5 with a PlayStation Plus collection. Even if you think it seems a bit too intense for you. It has the best gameplay, the best level design, the best boss fights I've ever seen in any game. I'm not even putting qualifiers on that. I cannot praise this game any higher than I do. So after 90 hours on the Red Dead Redemption 2 and beating it with a masterful storytelling, this game has one of the best stories ever made. Oscar-worthy voice acting, a soundtrack you could listen to over and over, an open world that feels alive but wants you dead, characters that you wish to kill or keep them close, graphics that have truly set the bar for open world games, and an experience you will never forget. Once again, Rockstar Games manages to outdo themselves. You can easily sink 100 hours in this huge experience exploring the vast, beautiful world of the West in the early of 1900s. There's so much to do, and that's just the single player experience. When you finish that, there's always a Red Dead Online, a huge open world with friends and foes alike. Well, even though the online mode isn't exactly in a great state, with hackers and cheaters on top of that, yet again gold currency of the microtransactions. Other than that, I truly recommend this game. There's so many things I could praise The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, but I will highlight several that comes to mind. Side quests don't feel boring or repetitive, and are often more developed and interesting even more than some of the main story missions. The open world element is great. It doesn't get old exploring around and feel like the worlds are reusing the same features and elements. It is truly fun to just explore with Roach and see what you'll find. Voice acting of Geralt and many of our characters is simply top notch. Your actions and decisions do actually have an impact on the game. There are quite a number of different endings you can get depending on your actions throughout, not mentioning that other characters and plots are affected depending on what choices you made. The gameplay, while the improvements could have been made to a horse movement and handling as well as some of the improvement to swords play overall, it was just very enjoyable, and the fighting mechanics definitely felt the best of the 3 games in the series. Overall, one of the best RPGs out there and definitely worth the play. Everyone has heard of Grand Theft Auto 5. I no longer play the game though, but I throughout enjoyed the time in which I did. I'm not going to bother talking about the campaign in details, but I will say this: a perfect video game should feel like a film when you are the main character, and this game achieves that at every opportunity. As for the online mode, in my opinion, is a semi-standalone game in itself. It is the greatest game ever made for its time, even though I totally don't agree with the directions of the shard cards, microtransactions. It was so exciting to play a sandbox game with such an in-depth level of graphical details at the time, not only on your own, but with your friends. The number of hours some people have put into this game, the staggering revenue has generated, and the fact that it is still one of the most updated and relevant games even into 2021. It is the quintessential game to the industry and a testament to what a video game is and should be. The story of Ghost of Tsushima is entertaining and has a ton of interesting side missions to partake in. The combat system is deep and allows for a fantastic amount of the customization. It doesn't hurt that this is hands down one of the most gorgeous PlayStation 4 games out there. Sure, there's some repetitive gameplay here due to the padding, just like any open world games you likely played. But ever since I've started playing this game, I've just wanted to play more. That's a real sign of a good game. You just want to keep playing it. This is one heck of a game if you own a PlayStation 4 and enjoy action and open world games, and perhaps even anything to do with samurai. You own it to yourself to pick up this game. It's easy to view God of War from a distance as a beautiful, polished, big budget title that hits all the major notes that the great game should. And it does. But look closer and you'll realize that it's a big game made up of a bunch of little things done right. The HUD is minimalist but informative, and total customization so that you can turn each feature on or off. The compass doesn't just give you the general direction of your destination, it tells you immediately where you need to go so that you don't run into the dead end. The voice acting and motion capture is phenomenal, led by the always amazing Christopher Judge. The writing, the characterizations is masterful. Traversing the world never feels like a chore, and every little piece of geography has a purpose. It's such a meticulously crafted game and absolutely deserves all the accolades it received. Typically in video games it feels like you have a choice between great storytelling and great gameplay. Rarely do they ever come together in a complete package, the way that they have here. It's one of the best stories you'll ever see told in a game, and also some of the most fun you'll ever have playing one. Not only has God of War totally reinvented itself and breathed new life into the franchise that desperately needed it to, but it's completely redefined what a video game sequel can be. Like Kratos himself, God of War proves that the series doesn't have to be restrained by its past, but can break free of its shackles to grow and evolve into something better, something deeper. It is a shot in the arm for the industry, it's a triumph of epic proportions, and it is, quite simply, a masterpiece of the highest order. Now hear me out. Before you say, no way, I think an argument could be made that it's the worst, greatest game ever made because it basically destroys all other genres and refines even certain aspects of past games, which I can see why people enjoyed them. But I've thought about it quite a bit. San Andreas might have had more things to do and gave you more freedom. Vice City might have had more of a funny cartoon style and captures the 80s. Grand Theft Auto 4 takes those games to a different scale and recreates New York City. There's so much to do and so many improvements over those games as well. Multiplayer for one, improved graphics and mechanics and a cover system, a well-crafted story and approaches to the cinematic quality. What other game combines all these things along with a well-crafted single-player story set in the open world? There's no other game of this scale that is well refined and has the fun factor the Grand Theft Auto brings to the table. I'm not saying better can't be done and expanded on. Red Dead Redemption came out, but it lacks the fun factor and just complete mayhem that GTA has in my opinion. LA Noire took a shot at the puzzle solving and crime solving, but it's lack of its other areas. They could take these things and make something better, but to this date it hasn't been done. I've gone back and forth on this quite a bit, but in the end, Grand Theft Auto 4 is the game that holds the most amazing memories for me since completing the game's story more than 15 times at this point. I simply cannot deny that it is indeed my favorite video game of all time.
Since you put it that way, I mean...
Every day, we're just out here. We're just out here doing our thing, man. We're just out here doing our thing.
So this is my full list. This took me quite a while to gather all of the games and constantly shuffling them around, trying to decide in which order to place them in. And as such, I personally believe that this is the order of the games that I would put them in, from the least to best of the games that I have enjoyed. It is not to say that my first game is the worst one, but instead all of these games are recognized by me being one of the best instead. I have plenty of other games that I could have added, but I have decided against it, since those games did not hold my enjoyment similarly. Like I've said at the beginning of the video, check out my other 15 favorite games of all time if you have not. Lastly, I wish to mention that I've got a Patreon, and if you wish to support me, please do consider. Also, check out the rest of my special videos in the separate playlist. Again, I will leave all the links down below in the description. At that, thank you all for watching this video, like and subscribe, and have a wonderful day.
Yeah. Hey, yo, this one is for all of my homies out there grinding.